Hi, you guys. So, the last time we were together, we started talking about volume, and we know that volume is the measurement of how many units it takes in order to fill up an object. We're no longer working with two-dimensional shapes. We're no longer working with things like perimeter and area, where we're just going around the shape or finding the inside of it. We are now working with three-dimensional shapes, where we are trying to see how many units can fill the inside of the shape. So what I thought would be a perfect example to help us kind of get into the groove of volume for today is I figured we would use these cubes that I have, and if you have something at home like Legos or anything that can connect together, I don't know what the kids are using these days, but if you have anything that you could build with as we go through this lesson to help you visualize these three-dimensional shapes, I think it'd be a really cool and awesome idea for you to try it out with me. So the very first thing that it's going to talk about in your packet is it's going to refresh you on the formula that we use for volume. Remember, the formula for volume is you're going to take the length times the width, just like we did with area, but then your last component is you're going to multiply the height. That's where we get that dimension or that three-dimensional idea, because now we're adding some depth to our shape and we're adding that height element. So what they're going to do is they're going to show you kind of what we talked about last time, how you can build these objects using the idea of layers, and how the idea of height in units is also kind of speaking to this idea of layers. And so what they do is they break it down for you, and they have completely different numbers. I use different numbers here as well, but I kind of wanted to show you how it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to color code this. We're going to use red for length, we're going to use blue for width, and we are going to use purple for height. So first things first, I always have length going along this side right here of my shape. It really doesn't matter if you have a 2x2 shape like we have here. I have two going this way and two going this way because the length and the width are going to be the same. And honestly, for this formula, it doesn't matter which side of the shape you label as length, width, and height, because since they're all being multiplied together, we know it doesn't matter what order. But we're going to go ahead and label. So that's my length. And my length is going to be 2, so let me go ahead and underline where I got that 2 from. My width, if I were to count, is going to be 1, 2. I have 2 cubes going that way. And then height is a little harder to think about. I'm actually going to change the view of my camera. Height is just thinking about how tall your three-dimensional shape is. So there's only one layer to this first shape, so it's just going to be 1 cube tall. And it's kind of hard to show in my drawing where that is, but then we've got a 1 for my height. Now if I were to multiply all of this together, it would tell me my volume, or how many cubes can fit inside of this shape. So I've got 2 times 2, which I know is 4, and 4 times 1, which is still going to give me an answer of 4. And if we look at it, we know that there are 4 cubes that can fit inside of this shape because we can count 1, 2, 3, 4. Layers are important whenever you can't see the entire shape. They help you to visualize it in a different way. All right, kiddos, now we've got that exact same cube. We've got those exact same 4 cubes, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another layer on top of it. So now we've got the exact same length. We've got 2 cubes going along the long side. We've got 2 cubes going along the width side. So we're starting with the same numbers, but now instead of one layer, instead of my height being 1, we can look at it from this angle, and we know that my height is now 2 cubes because there's 2 layers stacked on each other. And so I can identify my height as 2 this time. So just like the last time, we're going to start by multiplying the first 2 numbers. So 2 times 2, which is 4. And then I'm going to do 4 times 2, which is going to be 8. And once again, if we were to deconstruct this shape, just like this, like I had it in the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So sometimes whenever you can't see the entire shape, like right now we can't see the back side or even the underneath side, you can use this idea of layers to help you break down the shape and help you see it better. All right, the last one, We're going to start once again with that 2 by 2 shape. We're going to add that second layer just like we did on the last one, but this time we're actually going to add a third layer. So my length is staying the same. I've still got 2 cubes on the long side. My width is still the same. I've got 2 cubes going along the width side. And then if I show you my cube like this, it's kind of teeter-tottering. Hopefully yours turned out better than mine. You are going to notice that my height is now 1, 2, 3 cubes. There are 3 layers stacked on each other, so it is 3 cubes tall, which is how I got that number 3 for my height. Now kiddos, 2 times 2 we've already determined in the other 2 problems is 4, and then 4 times 3 is going to give me 12. And once again, I can deconstruct my shape to make sure that that's the right answer. Volume is asking how many square units can fit inside of the shape. So if I break it down, I've got 4, another 4, and another 4, and I know 4 times 3 we just counted was 12. We could certainly count those by ones if we wanted to make sure, but we know we can use multiplication. All right, kiddos, now that we've got the idea of layers, for your assignment today, they're going to give you a ton of shapes, and they're going to give you a table like this that they want you to fill in. They're going to give you the dimensions of the shape, but they want you to break it down and tell them the length, the width, and the height. They want you to give them the formula, and then you're going to have to calculate the answer by multiplying it all together. So I figured we would do one together. And this one is actually not in your packet. They actually use some bigger numbers in your packet. So here's the deal. If you can break it down into length, width, and height and give me the formula, I will allow you to use a calculator for this assignment to calculate the answer. I'm most concerned that you know how to do the formula for volume. Using those big numbers and trying to multiply them all together is not our biggest concern. So for this one, I noticed that on the long side, I have the number 4, and once again, I like to think of the long side as this front view that they give us. So I'm going to put underneath length the number 4. And they didn't give us any units, but if they have units in your packet like centimeters or inches, go ahead and tag that unit in that column as well. We'll use centimeters for this problem, just as a hypothetical. All right, the width is going to be the one that is on the side, just like this. So for this particular problem, our width we're going to put in this column, and it's going to be 3 centimeters. The last thing we're going to calculate, and they already once again give you your dimensions inside of your packet, is going to be our height. It's the one going up and down, and this one for this particular problem is going to be a height of 5 centimeters. Once again, my biggest concern is that you can create a formula for volume. Remember that it is just multiplying all 3 of those units together. So I've got 4 times 3 times 5. So let's go ahead and start and calculate our answer. Let's go ahead and start with 4 times 3. And if you got 12, you're absolutely right, which means that to finish out this problem, we need to multiply that 12 by 5. And 12s are kind of hard, but think about it if you know it. And you should have gotten an answer of 60 centimeters. But remember, we don't just call them centimeters whenever we're calculating volume. We need to add that word cubic in between the number and the unit. So if this were inches, it would be 60 cubic inches. If this were miles, it would be 60 cubic miles. We need to add that cubic word because we are figuring out how many cubes or how many square units would be able to fill in the shape. That's why volume is different, and that's why we have to use a different word to separate it from the others. So hopefully this was helpful. I want you to try some of the others on your own. Once again, as long as you can calculate the formula, you can use a calculator because some of those numbers were really big. But break it down, multiply them together, and use that word cubic. That will give you extra bonus points once you solve that answer. Awesome job, you guys. Have a great day.